Join me for this realistic bird ink drawing tutorial. Now when you're working on the feathers with pen and ink, or pen and wash in my case, so waterproof pens, and you're working on some of the lighter areas within the feather sections, I mean we've got all these little areas up here, haven't we, on the top of the head. But on that reference photograph there, as you can see, it's very pale, isn't it? Very light. So in order to kind of make these lighter, but still have detail, you've got to be a little bit more careful. Okay, so you've got to be very careful how you apply that ink, or even how you hold the pen. Yeah, I know. What do you mean how you hold the pen? You're just going to hold it, are you? No. What you need to do is consider the angle of the pen. There's some scrap watercolour paper. So when you're working with a lighter tone and then a darker tone for the eye, for example, if I hold my pen, bearing in mind I'm left-handed by the way, but it shouldn't make any difference if you're right-handed, of course not. If I hold it normally, as you would kind of write with the pen, so it's a slight angle like that, you find your lines are fairly wide. And this is a 0.1 size nib, so it's quite narrow, quite fine. If I angle the pen down, really low like that, okay, then you find, just going to put these here, look, that if you just graze the paper a bit more, Paul, you can add some very refined lines like this. Lot, see this? I'm not pressing on. Sounds like I am, but I'm not pressing on. Look how fine those lines are. That's because I've angled that nib down by bringing the pen down like so. So the higher the pen goes, the thicker the line will be. So when you're working on somewhere like this, I'm trying to angle my pen lower. Difficult to show you on camera because obviously I've got you straight up there. But when you're looking at something like that, then you can get some nice fine marks. And presently all I'm doing on this, by the way, just out of interest, I'm kind of mapping out the areas that I need to kind of fill the details in. And because I'll be painting this as well, I don't want this looking too dark. I don't want it too detailed, because then the colours within the paint won't stand out enough because it'll be too dark on the paper. So it's trying to get it just right. Okay, so that's what I mean. So when you're working with your pen to get some lighter sections, play with the angle of the pen. Don't press on too hard. Okay, so just graze that paper. And use very light pressure, extremely light pressure actually. It's so tempting, you know, when you go to these darker areas here. These very fine dark recesses. Is to completely fill them in, but obviously you don't want to. You really don't want to, because you need to add, as I say, that lovely blue colour over the top, in this case a pale blue colour. But you need to create an impression of these marks basically going in that sort of direction, aren't they? Kind of lines. But you need to create the impression that these are also divided by individual kind of feathers or hairs. I'm going to call them hairs. So be careful not to go too dark. It's so tempting, it really is. A little bit different when you're drawing with a graphite pencil, you know, general pencil lead. Because if you're just sketching this out, it'd be different, wouldn't it? Because you're working on different tonal values. To create different tonal values using a waterproof pen is not as easy, obviously. Apart from the techniques I've already mentioned to you, by obviously easing off the pressure, using different angles of the pen like that when you're working with it. And that's basically what I'm doing all the time here. I'm easing off the pressure, certainly easing off the pressure the higher up the head I go. Now when I'm looking at each individual feather, you find that the lines tend to go in slightly different directions actually. So imagine this one, well let's do this one's a bit bigger, isn't it? Imagine this one here. You've got to think about a central dividing line between that one feather. I know, odd isn't it? But then you've got lines coming this way, more from say 2 o'clock onwards, something like that, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And then towards that middle section, and then from there on, you've got lines going towards 3 o'clock. Slightly curved as well. So basically what you're looking at when you're drawing a feather is that you're looking at the curve to the outside like that. I'm going to over exaggerate it a little bit. Then you've got a bit of a central area. Don't put a big line like that though. You've got a line coming this way, so the lines are going in that sort of direction there. And then this side, they're going that way. probably slightly curved as well in places. And that's basically what we've got here. So if you lightly pen them in first of all, and then you can commit yourself a little bit more when you know you've got these lines sort of in the right direction. And that's basically what I'm doing here. Like now I can commit that little bit more to darken some of these lines. Leaving plenty of light in between though while you're doing that. Think about that central area for each individual feather as well. And when you get towards the edge, notice the edge, not all of it though, just notice the edge a little bit darker as it comes around that edge like that. But do this in directional marks, in the same direction you're doing those lines in the middle of the feather. And that goes, probably eases off the darkness as it goes slightly higher, so it gets a little bit paler there. And then some of these lines need to be slightly darker now. And there you go. And that's just about one feather really. I have noticed as well with these feathers down here, you know I was on about the way that the feathers tend to kind of divide in the middle of each feather like that. It's not always the case down here because these are probably just the ends of some feathers as well. It's not quite as obvious that you've got those sorts of divisions within each individual feather. So when you're working down these areas, you don't have to worry too much about that. As long as you still darken underneath each one like I'm doing now, so they layer themselves over there. Look at the rough shape that you can see on that photograph of each individual feather. It doesn't have to be the same one. That's what I'm creating, just sort of a kind of rough, slightly rounded kind of point. So you've got a point there, but just round that point off. And one thing you also want to be careful of when you're creating feathers, the feathers sort of go like that, so that sort of curve. A lot of them do, not every one of them. Some are actually a little bit wider like that. And you find that they do stagger as well. Not that they've had a drink or two, but they do stagger as they work around. So this one, the next one above it will go like that. Then this one will sort of go like that. See what I mean? And then this one, sometimes might start a little bit higher up and go like that. Some would be slightly more pointed, like so. It's a bit like scales really, isn't it? The way that they tend to go together like this. So they tend to go something like that. And that's what you're looking at when you're actually working with these feathers and the way they tend to overlap. You don't want to draw the feathers like this because then it'd be far too symmetrical if you just draw them one above the other like so. It's far too even like that. That doesn't work, does it? That is scaly, isn't it, like that? So make sure you just stagger them like this area here, like I've just shown you. Okay, got the idea? So that's all I'm working on, is I'm working down these feathers. So work on the outline first of all, just by using very small, tiny little marks like I'm doing here. Look. So I want to start to darken just the underside of the one above. I'm actually using the same lines. So if you've got lines going like this, okay, then what I'm actually doing, going in the same direction, but with even more lines. Very lightly, as you can see. I'm not pressing hard at all. You see, this isn't very dark, is it? And I can go even more lines closer to the feather above. And by doing that, you're going to get a nice kind of graduation of from light to dark all the way through, can't you, really? Just by going in the same direction. There's a different technique for you. Just never want to talk about while I'm working on it. I just realised I'm doing that without even thinking about it. So, there you go. Look at that. Yeah, that works, doesn't it? Now then, the beak. So we're going back to our 0-1 nib, as you can see here. I'm going to start by stippling. So another technique for you. All it simply is, I'll just show you on here again. Look. All stippling is lots and lots of dots like that. And when you've got lots of dots together, it creates quite a nice pattern. And the closer the dots get together, like that, so they really get very friendly and get really close together, it gets darker, as you can see here. So what we're going to do, we're going to use that effect of stippling, if we can pick that back up again, around this nostril, just to begin with anyway. We'll put some little marks in there as well. I say marks, like little strikes, little tiny lines like this sort of thing, you know, little crisscrosses in places. But initially stipple. Just try and keep it fairly even to begin with. And what we'll do, we'll blend that out, because all I mean is that we'll add more dark in one area, which will then make the other areas appear a little bit lighter. Now then, let's get darker. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to stipple again, but add more dots closer together, just like I've shown you on the test out there. Look. So the dots are really close together in places. Still allowing gaps to show through, so we still want to see the white of the paper through them, don't we? Because we need to drop some colour over the top of this. And we need those lighter areas to kind of stand out. If it's not quite dark enough in places, you can switch to your 0-2 nib. But if you've got larger nibs, you can use those as well. Just be careful though, because obviously with the nibs being wider, they're going to create much wider marks, aren't they? Now this is really dark down here, so I'm just going to create a line by stippling really close together. Just down this section here. So it's starting to show a bit of a curve coming over, isn't it? Because I'm concentrating these little tiny dots more to the kind of the right hand side of this curve. But I'm just trying to kind of ghost the area first of all, and what I mean by ghosting is by going over the area without touching the paper and then start to bring that pen down to gradually get the feel of that shape we're trying to create there. And be very careful when you get towards this edge here. Don't go over the edge like that one there. That'll be barely discernible when we get the colour on. And like we did here, we'll just increase the depth of tone. We'll increase the marks for this side of the beak. But remember not to go too dark. We need to be able to put the colour over the top of that and for the colour to stand out. Oh, I've got another technique for you. Really? I know. Oh, I'm doing it right this minute though. It's called squiggling. Squiggling. Test sheet, here we go. All squiggling is something as simple as something like that. Shaky hand, okay? Not that shaky. But squiggling, basically, I can do it as small as I want to. I can do it as light and as fine as I want to. Just by using the side of the pen again, like that, to create texture on that paper. So it's making use of the textured paper to begin with, but also kind of breaking away because I'm hardly touching it with any ink at all. And by using tiny, tiny marks and squiggle marks as I'm working on this lower mandible. So you can use that for some of those slightly rougher looking areas like around here. And then obviously work your way around in the same method, but ease off those marks as you get around this area here, okay? Right, let's get some squiggling done. Squiggling! And if you'd like to find out more about pen and wash techniques, have a look to the video to the right. I'll see you there.